Well, welcome, John, to the next edition of Rally's Founder Talk. It's a pleasure having you here. You know this, but Rally exists to help passionate entrepreneurs take their existing ideas or take their ideas in existing work and then transform them into positive or into sustainable ventures that create positive social change. The other thing that is important for people to know about Rally is that we believe that we can be a hub for social entrepreneurs, an international hub. So no matter where you're at in the world, you can be in Kenya, you can be in Russia, you can be in wherever. You should make a stop through here and come visit us. And the reason why is because we have exceptional people here. We have an exceptional network. There's a lot of leadership here that can help people along their journey to creating those sustainable ventures that create that positive social change. And the reason why you're here today is because you're part of the argument that we're making. That you're one of those people who are great, and that they should come stop here. So we're happy to have you join us today, and it's always a pleasure, man.
Thank you, Kyle. Pleasure to be here.
Yeah, you look good. I want to comment like this new look of yours with the hair and the beard. You look like an NBA coach.
Yeah. As long as the girls at home here say it's okay, it can stay.
Hey, you look great to me, man. I'm all about the beard, as you can see. So, John, we like to always start these things off with just talking about a subject that you are familiar with, but may have not talked about recently, which is Baby John. Who is Baby John? Like, and what we really want to know about Baby John is what were some of the things that happened in Baby John's life that you felt like are cultivated you and set you on the path that you're on today?
Well, I have to say I've never been asked about Baby John in
Good. We like to be different.
All these years. Yes. Actually, it's a part of my life I don't speak about often. It wasn't easy, but you know, it's those challenging times in your life that sharpen you. And I always say that you know the trials that you're enduring today are preparing you for tomorrow's success. And if you don't endure those trials, if you don't go through those, you'll never know how to get through that barrier that's keeping you from whatever God has in store for you. I was the oldest of four. I grew up in Jacksonville, and Nathan, not too far from hopefully from where you're working there. And my first semester in college, my father stepped out of our family's life and took with him all of my college funding and everything, all the resources from the family. So I had to drop out of school and come back and started painting houses and to pay the family debt. And college was out of this picture, and figured out a way to make it. Took care of the family. Started up a little company. It was kind of scary. I had 12 guys working for me, and oddly enough, we're painting churches and a bunch of 18-year-olds on scaffolding with no insurance.
OSHA violations everywhere.
Oh, absolutely. But again, it taught me, my first test of perseverance that so much came back later in life. And a friend opened a door for me up in Tallahassee, go to school there, and went up with, I think it was probably about $70 to my name. And, I had to find a job the very first day in order to stay the next week. And the amount of classes that I took next semester depended on how much money I saved this semester. And, from food insecurity to you name it, all the challenges that, quite honestly, not only build character and perseverance, but they also gave me a compassionate heart for people who do go through those things. And I think that so much, if I had not have lived that life for those many years, and I probably wouldn't be doing the type of non-work work that I do in the community. Yeah. So hence the blessing in that. But long story, got through it. Was blessed, got all my family through, all my siblings through college, through school, and got into healthcare, and then everything took off from there. So that's enough of my baby John story.
John, that's amazing. I've known you for years and haven't heard that story. And the image of a bunch of 18-year-olds on scaffolding painting churches is fantastic. Like, I love that that's the answer to coming home and having this college fund. The answer is you come home, not only start painting, but start a company that's painting churches. And it gets me, like, one of these debates I have in my head is that whether or not you can learn to be entrepreneurial. And I think that there are, like, skills and strategies to make a company a success that you definitely can learn. But there's something in a person maybe that has the confidence or the optimism or something that goes, not just I'm going to paint buildings, but I can find a contract and convince friends and find scaffolding and solve this problem. Do you think that that's inborn, or how does that happen for somebody?
Well, it's funny. Everybody has different skill sets and passions that are in them. And so many times we live our lives and other people live their entire lives without ever allowing those skills to come to the surface. And, it's just like COVID-19, what we went through this last year. It's amazing how much of a motivator necessity is. When you are forced to make a decision to survive, be it your business, be it your family, be it to eat. It's amazing how strong you find that you are, and how those skills that are inherent within you, they come forward. And some people, people on this call are all entrepreneurs. You've got that inside of you, and for some, whatever it was, at some point, something clicked that said, you know what, I'm going to go my own path. I've got an idea. I'm going to risk it. I have faith. I'm going to step out and I'm going to pursue it. And even if I fail, I'd rather try it than live the rest of my life and regret that I didn't take that step to begin with. So that's, hats, and every one of you have a different story of why you're here today and the path that got you here today. But at some point, there was a turning point that you made that decision. And, you made a decision likely to step into unknown and likely to step into no income. So this is, you're stepping into a fight, which is good. That if it comes too easy, you don't see value in it. It's that fight that makes it valuable and passionate and enduring to you. And you think about it, not just what you're going through, you're putting your heart and your soul in today. You're going to stand by this, that success of it or that failure of it for the rest of your life. And that passion that you have radiates, it's contagious. As you begin to bring people around you, whether you're telling your story in your 30-second interview today or your introduction today, or you start to go out and start to embrace a community and tell people, they will gather not around your idea, but your passion for your idea. That's the piece that people are attracted to, because you give them hope that they can also succeed in whatever it is that they're facing.
Yeah. So there's something about, like, when you realized, like, you didn't have the money and, like, the future that you thought that you had, or the pathway you thought you were going to travel, was not an option anymore. Somewhere in that moment, you made a choice. I mean, I think people respond to adversity, obviously, in different ways. Like, some people respond from a place of, like, oh, and they just kind of sit in it for a while and they just really never move, or they start to move backwards, and then some people move forward. Obviously, in this choice, you said, I'm gonna just. What was the motivator? Because I don't want to come off of that, because I've never heard that part of your story, and I think it's cool that we were able to pull it out on this call. And so I just want to kind of sit on it just a little bit. But what was the motivator? Was it, when you started the company, was it to earn money because you felt the need to take care of your family, and then also simultaneously you're like, I got to figure out how I'm ultimately get to college, or was it just about I got to take care of my family to stabilize like the now?
Yeah, it's. I'm going to answer that two ways, Kyle. Directly, it was necessity. It was I was I was all of 18, and I was the leader of the family, and we had three siblings that went all the way down to goodness, I think 6 or 7 years old. So
Right.
if that necessity spurred it, and then you talk to different groups of young high school or grade schools. Nobody's got it. There's very few people that have an easy road. As much as we love to look up to these people and emulate them, most people out there fight. Fight. Demons or addictions or setbacks or family or job or whatever it is. And that's just a part of life, and you have to make that decision. That whether to me, it's which voice you're going to listen to. Like, okay, it's my dad's fault. It's my environment's fault. It's my community's fault. The government's
Mhm.
fault. Or, dang it, it's my life. And if I want to live it, I got to take a step on my own and figure it out and fight and don't give up hope. Now, the second thing I'll say is that I was I'm grateful to have had that necessity, because it's like a muscle. Okay. And any muscle you have to work it. You don't go out and run a 7-minute mile the first time, which by the way I did. And you build up to it. That overcoming, that perseverance, and that overcoming of adversity, that's a confidence and strength that grows each time that you do it. That was the first of 3 times I had the rug pulled out from underneath me in my career and in my life. And each one of those times enabled me to get stronger and more determined to overcome it when it faced the next one. And each one got bigger, by the way. And I think that's by design too. And I'm grateful it went in that path. But you just got to have that heart to never give up, and especially starting a business.
Yeah.
Your dream always has a fighting chance until the very moment. There's only one thing that can stop it from happening: the moment you give up on it. The
Yeah.
moment you give up on it, that's when the dream goes away. And
I've always liked the what adversity and the squeeze on resources does, especially in business, right? Because you're right, like COVID hit, and I remember very early on thinking to myself, this is an opportunity. Everything is shaken up. It is bad. It doesn't like let's just be clear about that. But like we got to figure out how to grow and to innovate. Even with Rally, right? Like we had to like dramatically change how and it forced us to be innovative to figure out how we're going to deliver something with quality that people still want in a different manner. And as a result, a lot of good learning and it has taken place, and we've been set off in a really good direction. So I'm always a fan of low resources, adversity, and then people being able to and what that can do to take someone to the next level.
No, absolutely. You have to have that. And, I contend to anybody, if you've yet to fail at something, then you've yet to try something worthy of your effort.
Yeah.
Failure is one of the greatest teachers that we can encounter, because
let's sit on this thing, because you said you had the rug pulled from underneath you 3 times. So we got the first time is with the family situation, and then so that happened to baby John, and then the second time the rug was pulled underneath you was.
You're going to dig deep in this, aren't you?
Hey man, we got to bring it. We got to do something different
Oh,
here.
but we could say, okay.
That's fine. That's fine. So my last class in college, it took me 6 years to get through school because of work and paying for it. But the last class was really cool. I was a marketing major, and it was marketing 4100. And in the class, you actually came up with a business idea. You wrote the business plan. You actually filed for the LLC, the legal name, the brand, the trademark. You filed for grants. I mean, they really put you through like you were starting a company, and at the end of it, you get your A and you move on. And I got my first job in healthcare, then moved out to Texas. And my business idea back then, this was back in 87 and 88, when aquaculture was at its beginning. There were catfish farms around, and over here you had black and redfish. A chef named Paul Prudhomme made it famous in New Orleans and literally wiped out the Gulf of redfish. So I did some studying, which was way out of context of economics and business and accounting, but I was fascinated with, could I overlap the science of aquaculture into a saltwater low salinity ratio and mass produce commercially redfish, which was not being done at the time. No one was doing saltwater aquaculture. And so I proposed it. I drew it up. Actually went to UF and got deep with the ag team there and the scientists, and we wrote the whole business plan and had developed this micro system, closed loop system that pulled water, salt water out of the Florida aquifer, which is only 7 feet below the ground, put it through a filtration process up in Palm Coast at a closed cement factory where I found a 140,000 gallon above water tank, circulated it, and then pushed it back out. And I thought it was kind of cool and fun and didn't think anything about it. And 6 months later, I get a phone call in Dallas where I was living from my professor and said, "Hey, John, do you remember me?" And I said, "Yeah." I said, I do. I swear I didn't cheat on the test. And he said, "Hey, just some good news. Your grant request got approved." And I said, "What grant request?" He said, "For your aquaculture system." I'm like, "Really? That's nice." He says, "No, John, you got approved for $750,000, from the national, whatever it was at the time." So I immediately quit my job in Dallas. My poor wife, Monica, thought I was not, her family thought I was nuts, and she became my wife still. Moved to Florida to pursue it. And I will never forget, gave up everything. Now I'm going in great debt, living back at home. And it was okay. I had I had the money coming. I couldn't get the money till we actually opened and started the company. Okay. And I'll never forget, I was driving down to Miami on August 5th, and this would have been 1990, and listening to NPR. I was on my way to the Florida Aquaculture Association meeting, and on NPR, the announcement was that Iraq bombed Kuwait, if you guys remember back then. Okay, it's terrible. I didn't think anything of it. The next day, if you guys remember, 24 hours later, the U.S. declares war on Iraq. Okay, I still don't think anything of it. The next week, I get in the mail a letter said, sorry to inform you, during the national times of war, all national grants are rescinded.
Ooh.
And so I left my career, left my girlfriend, went into great debt, started this, and just boom. And, but you know what? Thank goodness the rug pulled out before you pick it up. You pick up the pieces. You learn. You look at the blessings of what you learn from it. And I got another job, and started back in my healthcare career, and kept going forward from there.
Wow.
What would you say? Like, what did you learn from that? What did you take from that experience?
You can't at the moment. That's always when it looks the worst. When you're deep in the loss and the setback and everything else seems like it's nothing else is possible. That's a pivot point of not necessarily stepping into what your future is, but more importantly, stepping into the determination to pursue that future, to not give up. Because so many times it's easy to give up and crawl in a hole and feel sorry for yourself or blame it's the same thing I said earlier. I could blame everybody else around me, or you know, you know, it's you can't blame yourself. You
Mm.
can't start beating yourself up. The story. I so much believe that the story that you believe, that you listen to, it determines how you live your life. And if you start to listen to all these failures and setbacks, your decisions, your steps are going to follow that. I mean, the people on this call, not every, not, truth of the matter is not every business is going to make it. Okay. All right. But that spark that you have right now, that's the most important thing. And all the business lessons that you're hearing from each other and from Ben and Kyle, whether you apply them in this particular business or the future, doesn't matter. They're still the great principles that ultimately are going to set you up for success.
I really like that because what I heard you first say was something about never give up, and I like am squaring that because I know, you say an entrepreneur doesn't fail, they just quit on something. But what I hear you saying is there an enterprise or a particular project may need to stop, but that doesn't mean that the entrepreneur stops pursuing, creating, solving, living well, right? Is that what you're saying?
100%. And sometimes you might just not have the necessary skill sets today. It might be a great idea. And it may be something that 10 years from now or 15 years from now, you're able to come back to, because now you either have the resources or the skill sets to do it. I wanted to open, my poor wife, I wanted to open a barbecue place the moment I met her in Dallas, and saw brisket and God bless her. She just, said, please get a real job. Let's start our family and grow it. And, I had the dream in my heart for literally almost 20 years to open a restaurant and start a barbecue place before the timing was right to actually do it. And as frustrated as I was in all those years in healthcare, I was kept moving up and kept moving up. And ultimately, the skill sets that I learned from Johnson and Johnson, from leading the strategic business group to priority to running $1.5 billion organization, those skill sets allowed me to be ultimately successful when I did step into that dream and start the restaurant.
Yeah, I mean, like the skill set, and really, it goes back further than that. I mean, it goes the skill sets you learn from the moment of the first rug being pulled underneath, where you were determined to continue moving forward, and then you sitting up on a scaffold with a bunch of dudes, right, and painting stuff. I mean, like that stuff was pivotal, right? I mean, like it was important, and then this story that you just gave about the grant being pulled because of the war, right?
No, there's not a moment in your life that's insignificant. You are learning something every single day and every single moment that's going to help you later in life.
Yeah, even the bad stuff, right? Like, it took me a while to learn that, right? And I think that's where my life, I feel like personally for me, took a turn when I was busy trying to avoid the bad stuff, and then when I finally embraced it and said, well, how can I turn this into something good, and what's the good in it? That's when things became different. But you're all also absolutely right in the notion of, like, the more times that you fail at something and you recover from it, you do build up a sense of confidence, because like I don't, like, nowadays, like whenever something like happens, like I'm like, yeah, I'll be all right, because I know, like, I've done it, I've recovered enough to know that I'll be all right. Like, there's a period where it doesn't feel good, but I know I will be all right. So I want to just double tap on that.
100%. When there's a saying, when you win, and when you lose, you learn.
Yeah,
It's not the end of the game.
definitely not the end of the game. So we got to talk about the third rug, John, listen. This, I don't, okay, you never told the story about the scaffolding ever. Well, I shouldn't say ever, but this, and then you haven't told the story about the grant being pulled. Have you ever talked about, I've never heard you talk about that. Man, let's keep making history. Let's talk about the third rug.
The third rug. So, Kyle, I resigned from my position as president of the healthcare company to go pursue a ministry, as you guys know that we started in our garage, because that's where I felt my calling, and it was the barbecue ministry. And this was back in 2007, 2008. And the ministry grew so much. The last year of it, we served 40,000 people in the garage. And finally, we said, you know what? We need to move the ministry into a facility. And this part of the story, I do think you know. So, God led us to a little place on Fairbanks. And I thought, wrongly, how easy it would be to convert a little teeny old Just Breaks into a little commissary that we could run the ministry out of and cook some barbecue. And I'll never forget, we set aside, it was supposed to cost $188,000 to convert it. This came from our contractor and everything. And it was supposed to take about 3.5 months. And 6.5 months into it, over $500,000 spent. My contractor had walked off the job, stopped working completely. And this was in 2009. Not only did he stop, we were significantly over budget. It used all the discretionary cash that I had kept. Everything else I put into mutuals. The market collapsed in 2009. And so all the savings that we had from all 20 something years of working was down almost 70%. We couldn't take any cash out. We just moved into this big beautiful house we built, and we were immediately upside down in it. And literally from I say it's the first, many times I say it's the first time in my life, but it wasn't, because scaffolding days was the first time in my life. But it was the first time in a long time that Monica and I, we were down to 60 days of cash as a family, and didn't know how to build it, how to start it, didn't know where the money was going to come from to finish it. And it's one of those that you step back and you ask God, wait a minute. You asked me to do this ministry, you prompted me to go in this direction. I gave up corporate. I was president of $1 billion plus company to step into this. And how is it in 2 years now we're about to lose everything? And it was once again, it was the learning and the faith of the prior 2 times that got me through this, to never give up hope. Now, I say that so easily, trivially, but truth of the matter is I was terrified. And every day I was on my knees praying for protection. I didn't know how I was going to get through it. I really didn't. And by not giving up, doors did open. Things did happen. People stepped into my life, and I'm so thankful. Matter of fact, there was one day at the very lowest point. I don't know if I ever told you this, that I get a phone call from my old CEO, my mentor back in healthcare days. And literally we were in that 30-day zone of losing all of our money. And he said, John, we're going to buy 3 specialty pharmacies. We're going to bring all the assets together. We're going to create a company here in Orlando. Would you like to be the CEO of it? And it was a Friday afternoon call. And it was funny. It seemed like such a blessing. And thankfully, I had the fortitude to say, let me talk to my wife and pray about it, and I'll let you know on Monday. And we did that weekend. And, we prayed about it. And she knew it wasn't in my heart to give up. she knew I was going back to something that, didn't speak to me, didn't bring life to me. It was just a job. And there's such a difference between a job and being passionate about it, making a living. There's a huge difference between those two. And thank God she said, she told me that, John, even if we lose everything, I'll stand by you. If you believe if this is your dream, this is what you believe God wants you to be doing. And so I called Steve back the next day and I told him I was going to pass on it. And he thought I was crazy because he knew the situation I was in. Now, I'll tell you this before I tell you what happened. 3 months later, that aggregation of assets, the acquisitions he was making, they all fell through. It wasn't a blessing, it was a temptation to take me away from where my heart was and the path that I was going down. And it was 2 days after that, gosh, I can tell the whole dang story. A contractor stepped in my life out of the blue because he drove by the location, saw the trouble. He was on his way to a Bible study up in Longwood. He gets to the Bible study, and one of the guys, he's all troubled. He's there, and the guy who's running it says to him, Brad, what's wrong? He said, I don't know. He says, I went by this construction site today, and I swear to God, God told me that whoever's building it is in trouble, and I'm supposed to help him. And my buddy says, yeah, he's in big trouble. He has no idea what he's doing. He needs a lot of help. Okay?
He's in big trouble.
Brad was the CEO, owner of a construction company that had 2 clients in Orlando, SeaWorld and Disney. Okay? His company stepped in. Okay, now here's the really weird part. They got us to CO. They got me open 59 of the 60 days before I ran out of cash. You guys down to 1 day of cash before we opened. And the second, crazy. And the second person that stepped in, I get a phone call, a voicemail message coming back from New Smyrna one day from Dan Cathy, Chick-fil-A. And I won't do the impression of him. He said, basically, John, he said, I just had your brisket and your sauce this weekend. I thought it was the greatest thing. And I felt God told me to reach out to you and to help you, offer my help. And Dan stepped into my life. And this is an important thing, okay? Out of the blue. I mean, I'm not a restaurateur, okay? He gave me what I needed the most. And you think it would be money, okay? You think it would be stepping in with construction. He gave me confidence. He stood by my side. He listened to me, and he kept lifting me up and helping me work through those impasses that I was getting through. And it's just, and the thing that I always tell mentors and entrepreneurs to be future mentors. One of the greatest gifts and impacts you can make in somebody's life has nothing to do with your cash or your capital. Okay, it's the confidence that you instill in them by spending time and sharing your knowledge and building their hope and their confidence. And that's exactly what he did. And son of a gun, if the store didn't open in October 26th in 2009, we were down to 1 day of cash. We didn't have any money to advertise. We didn't have any money to promote. There were 12 of us. We prayed and opened the door, and here we are today. And 12 years later, and we're still praying. And the important thing, though, that trial, okay, that we went through, the team that I went through with it from my garage, they're still with me today. Those same people, that not only galvanized our team, okay, but that established our culture as an organization that no matter what obstacle or challenge we're going to face, we would overcome it because we had confidence built and instilled in our DNA. And when COVID hit last year, this week, right now, okay, we had lost $30 million in sales in less than a week. We were burning over $900,000 cash per week, okay? And we didn't know if the company was going to survive. And I look back on my prayer journal, my notes, that's exactly where we sat today. We had to let 488 people go, okay, in a week and a half just to save the business. And you know what? Not a moment of it did any of us have a doubt that we would not get through it. And not only, and we kept challenging the team, not only are we going to get through it, we're going to come out better because of this than we did going into it. And sure enough, today, if you look at our operation and how efficient we're running, from September to December in 2020, okay, our net income was greater than all of 2019 combined. And we're running more efficient and better and stronger today than we ever have in our entire history.
I love that. I mean, I have heard portions of that before, but that is beautiful. And I appreciate you telling us about the pandemic thing. One first thing to pull out of there is I love that moment when you get that um, tempting offer to go do something else, and the pause to come back to your wife. And I was thinking about it then too when you talk about the 11 or 12 that you have there that go with you. And there's people talk about having co-founders or the importance of team. But one thing I feel from you, and maybe this is just an interpretation, but it's like there's a vulnerability that's required in order to have actual team where you're not making all decisions by yourself and going back and selling it to people, but at important moments you're pausing and being vulnerable and making decisions together. I feel like that's really cool, and that's a really good example of that. Do you feel like that vulnerability is required to make a good team, or that's just the way that you do it?
And vulnerability is the currency of today's leadership. You have to. You keep the more you set yourself on a pedestal, okay, as the authority, as the know-it-all, you know, the greater the distance is between you and the people that you need, okay, not only to keep you honest and humble, but to keep you informed on the business and help you make decisions. Not anybody on this call, including myself, knows everything about whatever sector that we're in. You have to have those checks and balances, be it within the company, okay, people that you have shown your vulnerability and admit, oh gosh, boy, I messed that up. Or, the most important words are, I don't know. Let's talk about it. And it's amazing once they have that trust. Okay, I always say that once they trust your heart, they'll give you their hands. And how true that is, because you want to encourage that feedback and that challenge. Otherwise, you stifle the growth of the company. And what you notice too in that story, my check and balance actually came from outside of the company when I went to Monica. Okay, when you grow in a company, the bigger the company gets and the further you go up, the fewer people there are that will speak honest to you, that will speak the truth into your life. You've got to have somebody who, without reservation, okay, who has a complete trust, will tell you when you're doing something wrong. And that person is absolutely vital in life and in family and in company.
Yeah, that's really no, you're absolutely right. It's like the echo chamber, and I've heard that from very successful CEOs before about the further they get up. And then you hear stories about this, like just in general, like celebrities and stuff. Like the more bigger they get, like there's very few people around them who will tell them the truth and correct them. And they go sideways, right? Like it leads into a lot of bad things. And so I've heard that the best CEOs are the ones who will find a close knit group of people who can be just real with them and just tell them where they're going wrong. And that's one of the things like I value about Rally in terms of how we interact with our fellows is that we say to them. One of the things we do is like, in my style, I just kind of like I push back a lot. I can tend to be somewhat combative. I challenge everything. I'm skeptical, but the reason why I do it is not because I don't believe or care about them and their success. It's because I just don't want to snow them. Like I feel like if I go through this and I just and I'm not a skeptic, or if I am a skeptic, then I'm a skeptic, right? And so I do it with an intent of just being honest, because I want them to get better, right? Like, I want them um, to hear the truth, because I know that the truth matters, and it might not be what you want to hear, but it at times it could be the best thing for you to hear, right? And so I really appreciate you walking us down that path. And the next, so we have a few minutes, but before we open up to Q&A, one of the things I want to do is, you probably have a couple. Well, it's not you probably do. You definitely do have a couple of 2 or 3 just golden nuggets. I know you talked about a lot of stuff, but are there, give us some chunks of practical advice, wisdom about entrepreneurship, about whatever you feel that we can give to these fellows and those who listen to this call later on, that they can take away. So, and then let's just kind of unpack each one of those. We don't have to speed through them. So if you have like 2 or 3, if we're lucky, what are those? What's the first one? And we won't call these rugs, we'll call them lamps. So we already dealt with the rugs. Now we want to put some lamps down.
Or making a house here.
Yeah, we're gonna make a house together.
That's all right. A few golden rules I kind of use for myself, as well as when I speak to young entrepreneurs. The first thing, the thing, and you think about it, you've got to go completely at risk. Okay, you're stepping into something that hasn't been done before. Hence entrepreneurship, and being your life, or sometimes in the whole country. Make sure that you're passionate about it. That there is a driving reason behind it that's other than financial. Okay, because finances are easily replaceable. Money, you can make money. Okay, you can get a job somewhere and make money. Okay, the need, the burning desire to help people have access to social services. Okay, that's got to move your heart so much that you're willing to spend 14, 16 hours a day, listen to people, seek out information, and drive to go and do that. You have passion is your, to me, your greatest asset when you're starting a company. And you've got to have that passion, because you will face trials, and you can't grow without failure. Okay, and you can't fail without facing trials. So you have to be willing to do that. The second piece is a little bit more practical. No matter how much you believe you have the model baked, okay, and written, and beautiful business plan, and it all makes complete sense, step into it recognizing you're going to have failures. Okay, you're going to learn, because there's so much that you don't know yet, right? And it comes back to a principle that I employ, and it's invest a little to learn a lot. Okay, that learning, what you learn, you take for granted you're going to fail at something. Okay, I have a setback. What you learn from that is going to propel you to get to the next level. Okay, you might as well and lose and put at risk a small amount while you're learning that lesson, versus betting the whole farm and learning that exact same lesson. So test out your item. To us, I look back on it, and we had so many times my sauce, my barbecue sauce, that we're grateful today. It's in all the Publixes, it's going into Walmart, it's going to Costco and all this stuff. We didn't start there. We started literally putting it in the Zephyrhill bottles that we stripped the little plastic wrap out, and selling them for charity in front of a school, to help Geneva raise money. We invested a little and learned a lot. And from there, I learned how to refine the recipe, and then how to scale it, and then how to bottle it. Everything is done on increments. And the third thing.
Wait, hold on, real quick before you go. I love the Zephyrhill bottle thing, right? Who invested in the Zephyrhill? Was that who drank all that Zephyrhill? Maybe that's the point.
No, yeah, we did. That was easier. Actually,
okay.
the school ultimately ended up giving me cases of, empty bottles of Zephyr Hills because we were helping
Uh,
them.
and then you
So
use those, you recycle those, repurpose those bottles and turn them into, man, that's really
yeah,
cool.
yeah,
I
yeah.
didn't know if y'all
Um,
were like, y'all just bought Zephyr Hill and y'all said, let's have a party and tomorrow we're going to do something with these bottles. No,
no.
okay.
Yeah, we anything we could at that time.
That's cool. All right. So, and then I just want to double tap on something you said. Like we talk about that a lot with our fellows. That at this point in the program, that they should be at a place where they're getting out the house. Right. It's like enough of just kind of going through the exercise of trying to figure out what works. Like you got to put it out there. And one of the things we talked to them about is running these very low cost experiments where they're just testing stuff, right? Just to see if it works or not. Some of it, a lot of it will not work, and some of it will, but the lessons are critical. So it dovetails right exactly into what you're saying about investing a little to learn a lot. And so I really appreciate you putting a stamp on that. What was the third one? You had a third one coming down the pipe? Or no, that's okay. You don't have a.
I will. I'll tell it to you, but I will say this: you're right on target. You know, the way that we are wired. I could say society, I could say community, but it's just human nature. We're relational. Okay, people buy from people. You can have the greatest business plan on paper, but until you go out and you press hands and you meet people or you Zoom call and they get to know who you are, your business is really challenged to get off of that paper and to move forward.
Yeah, I agree with you on that. Especially if you got a great looking face like our boy Nathan, who looks like Matthew McConaughey. He should use that to his advantage every time. But but John, this is pretty awesome. I really enjoy. I always enjoy talking to you. And you and I have intersected many times. And you're actually a very interesting person in my life personally, but then also in my family, right? And so it's always good. And I really love the fact that on this call, we were able to pull out some things that you have really never talked about publicly. And so that makes me feel really good because we try to be exceptional and different. So with that being said, one of the things I want to do is I want to open it up to these fine fellows that are all across Florida, the county, and the world, and just ask them if they have any questions. I'm sure they do. There we go. All right, let's open it up, folks. Well, hey there.
Hey, John, thank you so much for sharing. I took a lot of notes. I felt like I was listening to Tony Robbins and like Joel Osteen at the same time. Like it was an incredible. Thank you. I mean, just your perspective is incredible. And you said some quotes like vulnerability is the currency of today's leadership. And I was just curious, like when there is that, how did you manage that? Because sometimes like I'm also kind of selling the vision on like, man, we're gonna, this is really happening. But then, the bank account's kind of depleting. And so I'm just trying to see how you manage that with your team. Like I'm transparent with my co-founders and but then some of the other people, like I'm trying to manage the right expectations, but also share the potential upside that we believe is really, really coming. So.
No, that's a great question, especially in the beginning. You have to sell a story. You got to sell a vision. Um, the piece that I would interject in that is there's sometimes you're going to talk to people about an investment or opening a door or something. Take for granted that one of the greatest returns they can give you is potentially the advice. And there's a thing that when you're talking, you can't hear. And when you are meeting with people, especially people of influence or people that have gone down this path, really truly seek their input and their advice. And, I always say if, and this is not intended to be contrived or um, manipulative, but there's a saying that if you go to ask somebody for money, you're probably going to get there just, a light amount of advice. If you go to somebody and ask advice sincerely, they are likely to invest in you and give you that money. You know, the thing that means the most to people is their opinion, and a lot of people have the desire to want to share that and help people. You know, and it's funny how those people are typically the ones that also have resources because they put themselves in that second position. They've opened themselves up to be blessed with those resources that ultimately can help you. Um, when even with your team, and ask for feedback constantly.
That's cool. I want to add one thing, John, that you told me once where I was asking you a similar question, and you were saying that you had made a goal at the time to be in one of your stores every day, and that you also, when you were in that store, were intentional about being a walking representation of the brand, and the brand tying to your that passion that you talked about earlier, how it's so important for entrepreneurs to connect to their passion. Nathan, I think early on, when you have a team, the first is to be the torch bearer of that passion, so that everybody feeds on that passion and is reminded of why they're doing the thing that they're doing. And then in terms of like the reality of the transparency on where the dollars are, the other thing that I've picked up from John is there's no reason for us to lose integrity. So we don't ever have to say something that we can't back up. We don't have to misrepresent the future, but we also don't have to like give them visibility beyond their pay grade. So we don't make promises that we can't keep, right? As we're being the torchbearer for the vision, but we also don't have to open up the bank account to every employee. Um, I don't know if that's helpful, but that's been a guidepost I've used as a running credo.
Cool. Um, any next question? Jason. All right.
So I also want to reiterate, I really enjoyed listening to you speak, John.
Well, thank you, Jason.
Sorry, Jason. I muted you by mistake.
It's okay. It was a power.
It wasn't Freudian.
So I like this concept of like, you spending a little and learning. Kind of on the journey, how do you know what is passion for the idea and belief in the idea and yourself and your team versus like, when do you have to like set milestones and hold yourself like when how in your journey have you kind of differentiated between what is like belief and grit versus delusion, I guess, and how do you manage those goalposts?
No, that's a great question, Jason. Somebody told me a long time ago, it's something that really stuck with me, and it was hard for me to understand because I just come out of 20 years in corporate America, of living and writing business plans constantly. And the advice that he gave me was, don't write a business plan. And I said, what do you mean by that? He says, set yourself to a purpose. Okay. And from a faith perspective, which this gentleman was, he said, let God allow you to find the path to support that purpose, especially when you're in the beginning of your journey. Now, you have to set an outcome, okay, a target. All right. Let's just say I wanted to open a restaurant. Okay. I wanted to use that restaurant as a ministry and to help people. if at the beginning of that, I had the gall to think that I knew so much about the industry and what that entailed, to write it out, and then the forced myself in a discipline to stick to what I wrote, I would have missed all those learning lessons and all those times that God put other opportunities that kept me heading toward the passion, to the purpose, but in a different path than I had thought in my naivety. So, you know, uh, Nathan, all right, you're aggregating information to give to a landlord. Okay, you're bringing value to help people who don't necessarily have that visibility. That's your purpose. Okay, every time you go out and you speak to a different apartment complex or to a landlord, you're gaining information that's going to take what you thought was this path, and it's going to tweak it, and it's going to tweak it. Okay, and it's going to get you closer and closer. Marco, you know, at the beginning of this call, you talked about, I need to go talk to people at grocery stores. Okay, most important thing you can do. It's you might have this idea and this plan on paper, but you've got to go out and you've got to start meeting people that are going to help you ultimately shape what that is. And Jason, the second thing to it, if you're going to climb Mount Everest, okay, which sometimes starting a company, you know, because especially if you have huge lofty goals, okay, I want to open 50 restaurants across the country and sell them to Disney and do all this, okay. Well, day one, that can seem pretty intimidating, okay, and it's easy to get overwhelmed with that intimidation. I call it the Mount Everest analogy. Okay, when you set out to climb Mount Everest, you know, you put all the work, you bought your backpack, you got your maps, you got your cool compasses and all this, right? Then there's a day when you stand at the foot of Mount Everest. Okay, today's the day, you're going to do it. And you look up, you're like, oh my goodness. What was I thinking? That was huge, okay? I always encourage people, all right, you're always going to be going to the top of Mount Everest. Okay, that is your purpose. How you get there, focus on that next ridge. Focus on that very first ridge. Okay, when you climb that first ridge, which is attainable to where you are today with the assets, resources, and knowledges that you have today. Okay, you're doing a few things. You're learning. Okay, you're learning skills and how to maneuver through those challenges that are going to help you on the second ridge, third ridge, fourth ridge, which each get harder, by the way. Okay, and two, when you go to that first ridge, you're a step closer to the top each time. Okay, and you're building your confidence in each one. So that's a little bit of feedback is, you know, find that first win. Okay, get that first grocery store to sign on. Find that first industrial camp to say, or yes, I'm committed to clean air, and I'm gonna make that investment to go into it. You know, from there you will learn so much that you might probably change your business plan, but you never lose sight if you're still heading toward this single purpose.
Thank you.
I love that. I love that. That's, I want to raise a roof on that all day, man. Like that is, I feel like you've been sitting in on our calls, or actually we've just been sitting beside each other. And so we've just been gleaning wisdom because you talk about exactly what we have been talking about. As a matter of fact, I've used that metaphor, not with this cohort, but with the previous ones about like there's this big mountain and we just got to we understand we're trying to get to the top, but we'll get intimidated by it. We'll get scared by it if we just try to bite it off at one thing. And so we just follow the process and just take the first step and just be focused and disciplined on that first step. Like that's the next thing. And when you get there, you do then the next one. And so I really appreciate what you said on that. Anything else?
Yeah, I was gonna add one thing to that too, just calling back to that story about starting the restaurant, that there's a moment there when the opportunity to go back into pharmacy comes in, where, and when everything else is so underwater, where it'd be easy to go, okay, this is the point where I'm delusional now, right? At where it's not working. And at that point, then you had counsel that you had built vulnerable team relationships with outside of your work that you could go to and say, am I delusional or do I keep going? So Jason, there, it's like, I think part of that, I think that line between perseverance and delusion is an ongoing question for an entrepreneur. And when you have team around you that you can come back to and go, am I delusional or should I keep going? That you can trust and you've built, and they know enough on how to speak into it. That's a really valuable thing to build, you know?
Yeah,
I'd
absolutely.
like to squeeze in a question if I could.
Yeah, really, really, really quick, because we only have 3 minutes and we want to be respectful of his 2 minutes
Yes.
now.
I'll ask it quick, John. You have 2 minutes, I guess, and counting. How do you identify luck and how do you filter it or manage it? Because I think it's a noise thing for us to identify, like, what is tacking on to what Jason said is like how to persevere. But if we're just getting lucky, and I think hard work is the result of luck is the result of hard work. Yeah, what's your take on that?
Exactly what you said at the end. You know, you set up those opportunities because of the hard work that you've done and the steps that you've planted. You know, if you didn't take those steps, okay. When I said earlier that Dan Cathy called out of the blue, he didn't call out of the blue. Okay, friends of his were down in Orlando on a weekend. We were doing a charity event for Domerick High School. They volunteered to help. At the end of that event, they took some brisket and sauce with them, like I always give it out at the end, okay? And they were driving to a dinner party that Sunday night up in Atlanta, where she was gonna cook some kind of casserole. They had all hours and hours of traffic on the way, didn't have time to make the casserole. So they went to the dinner party, they took my brisket, put it in the microwave, and put it on the table where Dan ate it, okay? Was that luck that he ate it and got it? Or was that also a result of running the charity event where they were at, having the heart to do that, or all 18 years that I invested in learning how to make brisket?
I love that.
Sure.
Probably the 18
There
years.
you go.
That's perfect.
Yeah, probably, I think. Well, John, it was a pleasure. I wanted you to know that there is a fourth rug. And the cool thing about this fourth rug is that you and I both sit on this fourth rug. You sit on it as a Seminole. I sit on it as a Wolverine. And on Sunday, that rug will be pulled from underneath one of us. The good thing is this is on Sunday and we still will be friends. So regardless, we're still friends. I really enjoyed you being on this call today. I love what you were saying. I love the fact that we were able to pull some things out that were unique. And I'm really excited about how this benefits not only these fellows, but then also those who listen to this. And so you've proven our case on why people should make a stop here through Orlando, because we should be and will be an international hub for social entrepreneurs. And I appreciate you for all of that.
You guys keep doing what you're doing. You're making a difference. I love how you guys are investing in everybody. And good luck to everybody on the call here.